Hello. I've had a few questions about what exactly the Horizon IT system is, so I thought I'd produce a short video explainer to go over that. But essentially, Horizon is an accounting software. It's just a piece of software. It's not magical. The difference with Horizon as a piece of software isn't the fact that it had bugs, but it's on how these bugs have impacted so many people's lives detrimentally. So, in 1999, Horizon started being put into, it says here, about 14,000 post office branches. I'm not sure how many that is in terms of the overall number, but obviously many, many thousands of post office branches. And essentially, it's a centralized computer system from supplier Fujitsu, which all branches were connected to. And it basically replaced traditional paper-based accounting. So rather than having spreadsheets out everywhere, like literal spreadsheets in paper that you filled out to do your accounting day to day, as customers entered sub postmasters entered transactions, these would automatically be added to the accounting system, which in theory saves a lot of time and effort, and theoretically should reduce the number of errors. Now, the problems were these unexplained shortfalls, including the ones where people were literally seeing them double before their eyes. And these shortfalls are what led to the convictions for false accounting and for theft incorrectly. But the big issue here is not that. From being in software development for such a long time, I can tell you there is not a single piece of software on the planet that is developed that is bug free, and anybody who tells you otherwise is telling you a bit of a fib there. The main issue here is rather than investigate and fix the problems, Post Office blamed those branch operators and prosecuted them for financial crimes, making them bankrupt, sacked, and, like we said before, in the worst case, people losing their lives. So it was originally developed by a company called ICL, which was then acquired by Fujitsu in 1998. And the system was what's called an EPOS, so an electronic point of sale service. So the till's connected to a computer, which runs calculations, accounts, software, monitors transactions. Now, obviously, a lot of the details are private, but I would imagine that it should have been. There certainly should be a way to reconcile the transactions against the final accounting reports to see where the errors are occurring in a system. I mean, we can see from the dramatisation of people investigating their accounts and the transactions and not being able to reconcile what had actually happened in front of them with what was on the system, and that is a big warning sign. These new systems were developed. The rollout was in 1999-2000, and it was the biggest non-military IT project in Europe at the time, apparently. So, there should have been plenty of resources available to kind of track down any issues and offer support when the system went live. So the other clue that there was obviously a problem with the software is if you've gone years and years and decades under a paper-based system and there hasn't been wide-scale problems, and then as soon as Horizon's installed in post office branches, you suddenly end up with all these previously fantastic sub-postmasters who've been on top of their accounts, experiencing accounting shortfalls, that in itself is a reason to investigate. The first thing that comes to mind there is there an issue with the system? So that should have been asked straight away. So many had never previously experienced shortfalls. Well, again, that is an absolutely standout statement there. What suddenly changed? Well, if the sub-postmaster's not changed, the post office hasn't changed, then it must be the system change that's happened. So one of the things which has come out is the post office contracts themselves weren't actually updated when the new computer system was installed. Well, the consequence of that is there was a clause in there, which we've seen in the dramatisation Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, that said sub-postmasters had to make good any losses. Now, under that previous paper-based system, they can track and find the cause. But with Horizon being a proprietary system that they aren't in control of, there was no way for them to independently verify and track and trace any issues like there would have been with the paper system, where they were completely in control of the records. So the problem here that the sub postmasters were left with is by the installation of this new system, the evidence that was needed to prove that they haven't stolen this money actually lay in the hands of whoever was running the Horizon IT system, which, based off what we've been told so far, is the Post Office and Fujitsu jointly. And it's clear that over the years, there were well over 700 sub-postmasters convicted for crimes such as theft and false accounting. That, again, with that being historically absurd numbers compared to previously, that would also make you want to start asking questions about the Horizon IT system. With what happened, the Horizon system literally would be your first thought as the major change that happened at the time if there was any issues. The other issue that's been reported is that the helpline wasn't much help at all. Now, that could be, I would suggest, because they didn't understand what was happening either. They were probably first-line technical support, so there was possibly no way of them knowing what it is. And if they are reassured by someone more senior that there isn't a problem, then they have to take that at face value, which is presumably why it seems to be such a frustrating ordeal for sub-postmasters trying to work with the helpline to get to the bottom of these things. Interestingly, as alluded to in the documentary, Alan Bates wrote in 2004, so 20 years ago, to Computer Weekly about these problems, who then did write several stories on it over the years, trying to expose the problems in the Horizon IT system. So it is a bit shocking that it's taken this long to come out now. Here we go. So the actual total number of postmasters, 736 prosecuted for shortfalls through the Post Office Horizon system. 555 claimants in 2019 were settled with, the total of 58 million, which obviously we found out has the majority gone on legal costs. And the actual judgment from the High Court of the system itself is that it's not even remotely robust, and that there was bugs, errors and defects posing a material risk of shortfalls in branch accounts. That is essentially saying that the software is not fit for purpose, and the fact it's taken this long to understand that is dreadful. One of the interesting things that's come up here is about the lack of documentation in the Horizon system, and obviously sub-postmasters complained about the time about the lack of training, the adequacy of training. I have to say the lack of documentation in software projects in general does tend to be a major issue. Companies don't normally put a lot of emphasis on it. The end users aren't always that bothered about having particularly detailed documentation. Sometimes documentation of the development system is woeful at best, and that can lead to problems when you're trying to find down the problem. Now, a system this size and scale being developed by a multinational company under a government contract should absolutely have had the proper documentation in place. And usually the reason it gets cut from projects, obviously we don't know what's happened here, the reason documentation normally gets cut from software development projects is simply because clients don't want to pay for the time to create it. Therefore, the companies, to save costs, the only way they can do that is to cut things out, and documentation sadly tends to be one of the things. There is an interesting thing here, saying discussions went back and forth on the levels of error checking in API calls. So API calls are essentially calls that the branch systems would make to the central Horizon systems, and would also help with the communication with the tills, and the level of error checking that is implemented in the system aligns with the number of bugs that are affecting the end users, in this case the sub-postmasters. So if you've got no error checking, then errors are extremely likely, it will probably be large and could be catastrophic. As you gradually implement more error checking, there is less chance, not no chance, but less chance of such errors happening. So it is interesting now that the source code has been access to the source code from third-party developers such as the Escher Group to reproduce and investigate errors. So it looks like they are trying to find out now how to reproduce the errors now. Any errors that have occurred previously should be able to be created in a test environment. However, the difficulty with this is the number of use cases that you would have in a system as big as Horizon. It could be millions, tens of millions. and you have to be able to recreate the exact circumstances in which these shortfalls happened to be able to create the same error. So that will be a challenge, but it's one that's well worth investigating, obviously, given the major impact of this system. It's natural that companies want to say their software is bug free, but it's not realistic there. So there is some responsibility, obviously, on the manufacturers as well as the post office. Interestingly, Horizon does continue to be used at the moment in post offices. I'm not sure what the current status is on it. I would hope there has been a lot of time into investigating, finding and fixing these bugs, and that where these shortfalls do occur, that they are being thoroughly investigated rather than just defaultly and blindly following the computer system and saying that it must be right. Computer systems are only as right as they are programmed to be, and unfortunately, as software developers, we are humans. We make mistakes. So certainly, it should never be the case that someone's guilt is decided solely upon what a piece of software has said without taking anything else into account. So to summarise, Horizon is an IT system that was commissioned by the Post Office and implemented in 1999, subsequently caused a lot of problems and has led to the current Post Office scandal that there is. Clearly wasn't fit for purpose. It is being used, and the Post Office are investigating creating a new system. One of the main improvements they could do here is to involve the actual end users of software in the acceptance testing of the software, which is essentially testing that an organisation who's commissioned a software project undertakes to ensure the system is fit for purpose. And that needs to be rigorous and widespread, particularly on such a crucial and large software project, such as one like the Horizon IT system. And it's really important that where issues are flagged, they investigated thoroughly, immediately, with a no-blame culture, with the idea that you get to the truth and you get a solution to the problem rather than it rattling on for years and causing the devastating impacts that we've seen. I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about the Horizon IT system. Stay tuned for more videos related to Horizon, the Post Office scandal and the petition. If you do have any extra questions, do feel free to leave us a comment below, and you can subscribe for more updates. Hope that helps. Take care. Bye.